Welcome to the Cinematologist Podcast. I'm Dario Linares, and down the line, of course, is my good friend Dr. Neil Fox. Neil, how are you doing?
I'm really good, mate. How are you?
I'm not too bad at all. I'm very much looking forward to the series that we have got lined up, which we are calling Film Stock Extra. So these are extra bits of content which we are putting out on the main feed that come from recordings that we did at your Film Stock Festival in Luton.
That's right, yeah. We had such great conversations with Mike Carey, Kieran Evans and Jeannie Finley. We wanted to give them some really prominent airtime on the main feed and let people enjoy the kind of the wisdom that those amazing filmmakers and writers shared with us.
So we're not going to go into a long extended discussion for these episodes, and there won't be an outro either. Each one will just go straight into the main body of the content. So what have we got lined up today?
On today's episode, it's my conversation with Jeannie Finley, which is a career-spanning conversation full of Jeannie's usual wit and wisdom and amazing insight into her creative process and her approach as a filmmaker.
Fantastic. So let's get straight into that now.
A reverent hush descended. Has Neil sat on the microphone? Oh yeah, you've got a microphone there, so... All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first podcast recording of Film Stock. We are recording on behalf of The Cinematologist, which is my podcast with Dario Linares, who's in the middle there. Hello, Dario. Say hello. Sorry. That's Dario. So when we kind of open it up for questions, Dario will be coming around shoving his microphone in your face. Politely, hopefully, to kind of catch your side or if you've got any questions you want to ask. But it's just going to be an informal conversation with the guests, and we'll just be talking about lots of things. We've got some clips to show to kind of add some context to what we're talking about. But let's get underway and welcome our first guest, Jeannie Finley. Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Feels like a long time to have you here at Film Stock, because I think we met or sort of became acquainted through Director's Notes probably at the end of Film Stock, at the end of its run.
Yeah, I think we met through Twitter, maybe.
Maybe, or Director's Notes.
Director's Notes, because we all wrote for Director's Notes, and I probably started doing that around 2009?
Yeah, which is probably just when we finished. Yeah, but you've obviously visited Falmouth University where I teach, but it's really nice to have you here in Luton, screening sound out and talking to us. I guess we'll start kind of generally, really. You sort of said they're kind of writing for Director's Notes. That was at the start of you as a filmmaker as well. So how did you get into this kind of business?
Oh dear. I was an artist for quite a few years. I really enjoyed spending time with people and getting to know their lives, and I did a lot of sort of large-scale interactive work. I used to interview strangers about the love that broke their heart and program bus stops with these forlorn love stories. I'm interested in making connections with people and was really interested in any sort of format, really. It could be anything from a neon light to a photograph to an enormous doll's house, which I made an interactive work called Homemaker, which I ended up showing in a giant doll's house that I constructed and toured to galleries all over the country. But basically, I'd been doing all this work which was sort of photographically based and dealing with a lot of people's stories. And then I realised that the conversations I was having with people when I photographed them were the work. So I would start filming them. So it was very accidental. So when I was making Homemaker, I was interviewing people who lived all in one room, really. They were housebound. And I just started filming, and it was shambles. I was wearing a noisy jacket. I didn't do anything fancy. I just left the camera there and I talked to people. But I realised quite quickly that if you got people to talk about their thimble collections and the painting of their ex-wife, that they would tell you their whole life. And as soon as I'd done that, there was a curator Aberdeen Art Gallery, we were installing the work, and he just said, you know, the films are enough. You don't need all this.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to make a film. So I made a film with a beginning and an end for DV Shorts, a 10-minute film. And then I pitched a film to BBC and went through a development process. I pitched a film for Teenland, which was about 4 teenagers who spent all their time in their bedrooms and their interior landscape of dirty knickers and nail varnish and living online and this sort of thing. And pitched it, did a development pilot, and then at the end of the meeting, you know, we went through this process, and I thought, you know what, they'll let me make a 20-minute film, and the commissioner just said, yeah, make a 60-minute film for me, please. So that was my first film.
Straight in, 60 minutes.
6-minute film for BBC4, and I asked him for what advice do you have for me, and I'm not allowed to swear on this, but he went, F off and make me a good film.
Oh. Well, you can swear on this.
Words were like, oh my god. But yeah, that's a very long story, but that's how I became a filmmaker, and as soon as I did it, it's just like, I love this.
It made sense, yeah.
Well, it's just like being in a cinema or hearing applause or seeing people like laugh and cry, and all I ever wanted to do was make people cry in the dark.
Well, I think there's a few tears here today when we showed Sound It Out. So.
Oh, it's just like the best thing ever. It's like opium for me. Just want emotional connection and intimacy with people. The thing that I think is really intoxicating about making films is you can tell shy stories, because the film, the act of making a film is like a loudhailer. You know, you'll never see a really strong alpha person in my films, because I don't care. Everyone listens to those people all the time. I want to hear the shy people who don't say anything.
We'll show a couple of clips in a minute, because I think that kind of leads on. But what you're saying there about shyness is really interesting, given how many films you've made where music is a central theme, because that feels like a great vehicle for accessing shyness, you know, as people's, in like Sound It Out, obviously the music that they love, but then also things like Orion and Hip Hop Hopes, a performance which kind of almost masks the real shyness at the heart of something. Is that something that you were aware of, kind of being attracted to as you were kind of making those early films?
No, not really. I think everything I do is really instinctive. I really, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to do and why, but it feels right. So I've always really, really trusted my gut instinct. And then you can sort of look back retrospectively. You know, I've made eight features now, and you sort of go, oh yeah, they're all the same. They're made with the same accent. They're made with the same lens, even though making films on the set of Game of Thrones doesn't look the same as following a transgender man having a baby. They look very different on the surface. Or a tiny record shop, or a cruise ship full of goths. You know, they seem like, what's this weird smorgasbord of stuff? But they really have a similar accent.
Yeah, interesting, nice way to put it. Okay, there was a few laughs there when they heard about the Goth Cruise, so let's have a clip from Goth Cruise, please. It was a very short clip.
It's because it's daylight.
So what's it like looking back on that time of your life and the film that kind of came out of it? Because that's over a decade ago now, I guess.
It's quite weird. It's like seeing an old boyfriend. I don't know. It's I sort of look at it and sort of think, oh, you know, you sometimes think, oh, I do it differently now. But also, I do like the idea of, you know, no regrets. You make films. You know, if you if you didn't feel good about like putting something into the world, you'd never get anything finished. So I'm quite sort of like, okay, that's just a record of the time of how I was feeling and the things I was interested in at that time. And that was such a sort of liberation. It was terrifying. You know, I'd made this 60-minute film, Teenland, and this was commissioned so quickly. I mean, we pitched it. I think I was filming a pilot 3 months later in America, and then it went to commission. It was commissioned by the Independent Film Channel in the States, and I was running a 2-unit shoot on an enormous cruise ship, and it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Like it's coming from, you know, like say teens in a bedroom in Britain,
Yeah.
you know, to like a cruise ship with Americans and a big, you know, like it feels like a massive jump up, you know.
It was mental, but it was such a baptism of fire. I sort of felt like this is all right. I could do another feature. This is okay.
So so by that time you're into the mode of this is what I can do. This doesn't really matter what it is. You know, I'll take it on and kind of adapt to the opportunities that arise, because that seems to be something that's kind of come up throughout your career.
I mean, maybe it's like a foolish thing that's the opposite of imposter syndrome. It doesn't mean that I think I'm great, but I sort of think, why not me?
Yeah.
Why not? Why don't I just give it a go? You know, I live in Nottingham, and there's quite a big film scene in Nottingham, but there's a lot of people that make shorts, and they make shorts, and they make shorts, and they make... Once I made a feature, I was like, oh, this is brilliant. I'm going to make another feature. You know, especially after being an artist for years and the sort of tyranny of the private view, well, you never really know if people like something or not. The thing that's really intoxicating about making films is that people, if they watch it in a cinema, they're there to watch the film, and they'll like it or they don't like it. You know, it's much more immediate and connected. So, yeah, I have quite often, like, my mouth has written checks that I have to then cash.
Yeah.
So, like, there was points where I was standing on the deck of that cruise ship, because all the shots were shot. We had a cameraman on the shore, and I'd like drawn pictures of how I wanted it to look, and I was like, I hope he's getting it. You know, it was, and it was terrifying. Like 150 people, a lot of people were on holiday. They didn't necessarily want to be in a film, trying to keep everyone happy. It's enormous, and running a team. But I also love the challenge.
And I guess what's driving you is that, you know, you're genuinely interested in these people, so it's almost like you can zero in on them as individuals rather than, you know, bring this kind of machinery of the film to it, you know, because you feel like a filmmaker that's very much connected to your subject at all times, which I think is so important for getting the kind of stories that you want to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoy the idea of sort of microcosmic filmmaking. That you know, I could have, with Sound It Out, it felt really important to me that this record shop was, I loved it. I just fell in love with it, and it felt really special. It felt like an escape for me, and I could see that it was an escape for lots and lots of other people. And I'd much rather just make a film about that tiny world rather than make a film about every, you know, do a survey film.
Yeah.
You know, there's how many record shops in the UK? I know that I don't need to film in every single one of them. I could just film one. You know, and I've followed that throughout all of my films, I think. Yeah.
But it needs to be one that you have a connection with, so that you can go in and not just be like, I'm here to film this record store, because everyone's talking about record stores.
Yeah, and you know, when I was touring the film internationally, and I got taken to every record shop in every town.
We've got one around the corner.
I know. Yeah, someone just told me about it. It sounds really cool. But the thing is, I'm not actually interested in record shops. I'm interested in the stories of the people that run the record shops.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a lot of records, but I'd much rather hear the story. Like, I collect stories.
Yeah.
I don't collect vinyl.
Anymore, because you have to get rid of it.
No, but I mean, the thing is though, being connected with this, I see Tom really regularly. The shop is doing amazing, When the film came out, this was a film that I made because after I'd finished Goth Cruise, I was trying to get this film made, Orion, and I was really struggling. I couldn't get it commissioned, and couldn't raise the money. So I started making The Great Hip Hop Hoax. Then we hit a stumbling block with that, and I was spending a lot of time in lawyers' offices, and I was like, this isn't fun. And so I started making Sound It Out. I was going home a lot because my mum had breast cancer, and I was in the northeast all the time, and I'd go to the shop, and it was an escape, and it just felt like, this is a film I need to make, and I know I can make it for 10 pence, because it just needs my time. And the intention was always to make the film and sell it in the shop on DVD. That would be the end point.
Yeah.
And that was enough, because I knew that I needed to just make the film. And I didn't have my 2 units like on Goth Cruise. It was just going to be me learning how to use a camera. And the shop's a bit chunky, and I knew that it would be a bit rubbish, the filming, but it didn't matter because it fit the film. But the film, we crowdfunded it. It got this really big active following, and then it premiered at South by Southwest. Someone gave me a waiver to submit because it's £150 to submit to South by Southwest. And it got in. It made it through 5,000 submissions and premiered there, and it was wild. We got so much press, and the film released in America, Canada, Germany, and then the BBC, after saying it was too boring to commission, bought it, which was great. But as a consequence, the film has been massively pirated in China. So now, loads of Chinese tourists come to Sound It Out Airport. Loads of people from Germany come over. The shop's doing really well. The guy, Chris, the auditor, now works for Tom.
Nice.
In the shop. I know. And the shop next door to him closed down. Well, the guy went inside for drink driving. And he took over. He expanded the shops. The shop's now a third bigger. And they do much bigger installs. So the Future Heads are always a Razorlight, weirdly. I didn't realise it was still a thing. But they did an install last year. And people come from all over the world to visit the shop.
So almost
it's
those,
amazing.
Yeah. But I think one of the wonderful things about it is that all those decisions that you've made, just you with these people to make the thing,
yeah,
almost like you say that instinct of this is how this film's got made, is the reason that it has that impact, because it is such a beautiful human film that you can put your experience of your record shop in your town, or your town and your experience with those people in the town onto the film. It has such a resonance in that way. So almost those instincts are paying off in terms of that connection to the film, which is wonderful. And yeah, kind of that kind of classic idea that the specific is universal. If it was just about record stores, it wouldn't be anywhere near as interesting. But there's something so relatable about this record store that no one's ever been to.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I wanted it to be about personal stories and human beings. If I wanted to make a list of record shops, there are those films out there.
Did you get a lot of come and make a film about this record store afterwards?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's I don't want to make a shopping list. That's really nice, but it's not for me.
Yeah.
Someone else can do that, and there's definitely a market for those sort of films. And
did it kind of change the way you kind of thought about your filmmaking? Because you were sort of saying the first couple of films are almost kind of commissioned, so you're working in that structure of with a bigger team.
Yeah. But they were commissioned. They were my ideas.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in terms of actually having a quote unquote traditional crew and kind of going out, filming it in a different way.
It's all sort of the same, really, because it was all coming from me. I made Goth Cruise because I went to the wedding of an old friend from school, and she was goth in her 40s. It was like the older sister, and at school she'd been like this Susie Sue rebel, and then I went to her wedding and she was still a goth. And it made me sort of think, wow, I wonder what it is about goth, because you always see old goths. What is it about goth that makes people want to be goth forever? So I started developing a film called Goth Till I Die, And then I came home from work and my husband said, I've got it, the Goth Cruise. He'd read about this Goth Cruise online and I was like, oh, that's it. So then, you know, I had to hunt them down, get the access, and then we got IFC on board and worked with a production company. So, yeah, it's sort of weird. It's all the same. But I guess the thing that Sound It Out really made me feel okay about was that, you know, we started to pitch Sound It Out, and, you know, like I alluded to earlier, like I pitched it to the BBC and they were just like, it's too small. It's sort of not, it's boring. And he said it's charming enough, but no one will ever watch a film about a tiny, boring record shop in the Northeast. And I just thought, okay, that's fine. I disagree. You're wrong. This place is amazing. And actually, I don't care, so I'm just going to make it. And as soon as I did that, it felt so liberating. I felt like I can just make this on my terms and I can choose the people, you know, I can cast whoever I want in the film. And I just completely followed my nose. So I knew I wanted some metalers. Everyone said I had to meet Shane, the Quo guy. Mac was always in, just drunk. And being really cheeky with the camera. And prior to that, you'd never heard my voice on camera. But it seemed like what we were experiencing here is about a relationship with, it's not just the camera, it's because I'm holding the camera.
Yeah.
And it's about our proximity. So why doesn't that become part and parcel of the film?
Yeah.
And so I guess it just gave me confidence of, oh my goodness, when the film sort of took off, I just thought, oh wow, it doesn't have to be big, it can be small, and the smallness is really powerful.
Great. And then how does that impact, like you're sort of saying, you've got the Great Hip Hop Hoax and Orion kind of bubbling away around that time. Does that then help with those kind of getting those projects realised because of the success of this film?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when we got back we met with the BFI at South by Southwest, and they sort of said, look, we know you've done 3 crowdfunding campaigns for Sound It Out, which was exhausting. They said, will you do a 4th one to take it to cinemas? And it was like, you're joking. It's the well that is dry. But we did, and we took the film to 50 cinemas and toured it, did pop-up record shops, did the DVD as a double gatefold 7-inch DVD with a vinyl soundtrack. And it made me just learn so much. And Gavin, one of the characters from the Great Hip Hop Hoax, came to see Sound It Out at Rough Trade East. I was there on Record Store Day, because we were the official film of Record Store Day. And he was like, oh yeah, you know that hip hop film? Do you want to make that film again? And I was like, yeah. So we went straight into production, because we'd already lined up all the money. We just needed the access. So we just went straight into production. And then as soon as we made that, that went okay. And the BBC were like, what do you want to make next? I was like, Orion. They were like, it's amazing, why haven't you brought us this before? So yeah, sometimes it's just not the right timing, and you just have to be patient.
Cool. Right, I think on that note, we've got a clip from Orion, so let's see a little bit of that.
And we had this guy who said, I'm not going to play you sound too much like the others. In the United States, if you sound like Elvis, it's a kiss of death.
Because Elvis was more than just a voice. He gave all of the people of my generation a freedom that we hadn't had before.
I remember seeing Orion and just kind of feeling, oh, this is clearly the same filmmaker who's made Sound It Out and Hip Hop Hoax, like that. Just the sheer kind of human interest in this person and their story is so evident. But it also feels like there's a confidence that's growing, and that there's a support behind you. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily, I know there's still challenge, but it feels like it's a step on from those films in terms of the kind of filmmaking you're able to do. Is that what it felt like at the time? Like you were operating on a slightly bigger canvas?
Yeah, I mean, there was just more I wanted to do with the film, and yeah, you grow in confidence. It's a bit of it's a weird film. For those, you sort of don't get it from the clip, but basically Shelby Singleton, the naughty, let's call him the naughty Simon Cowell at the end of the film, basically decided to package Jimmy Ellis, the guy you see, by putting a mask on him, and he sort of perpetuated the hoax that Elvis had faked his own death. And because he looked like Elvis and he sounded like Elvis, so if he wore a mask, in 1979 hundreds of thousands of people believed that he was Elvis. So he went on this kind of roller coaster journey, and it ended up in total tragedy. And I went looking for the story because we bought a car boot sale for £1 of this man with a mask on and an amazing voice, and then found the most sort of devastating story. Yeah, I was really, something on the surface like this, it looks like, oh, it's just pop culture trash. And I was interested in something that was human.
Yeah.
We were talking earlier, there's a really amazing book called Let's Talk About
Let's
Love.
Talk About Love, yeah.
Let's Talk About Love, Why Other People's Taste in Music is So Bad. And it's sort of about Celine Dion and about the resonance of her music. And if you drive through a gangster neighbourhood in LA and you hear Celine Dion playing, you should get out of there. Because it's a lot of gang members listen to Celine to show that they're tough enough to let the emotions show. In the same way in Sound It Out, that I would never sneer at anyone else's taste ever, because I haven't got the right to do that. If something means something to someone. So if you like Makina, which to me just sounds horrendous, personally, but I love the passion that people have for it, and I love the rapping, it's brilliant. Or Status Quo. I heard so much Status Quo now, and I was absolutely in love with the way that Shane loves it. So in the same way with Orion, I spent a lot of the time when we were touring Sound It Out in the States, I would just think the only way I'm going to get this film made is to prove it to people. So I would call up my cameraman and we'd go and get another interview. And by the time the film got fully commissioned, I'd already shot 80 hours.
Wow.
And gathered 5,000 archive photographs and loads of private archive from people's attics and stuff.
Yeah. And it feels like a great companion piece to the Hip Hop Hoax, which are about these performance and kind of pulling one over on people, but obviously in Hip Hop Hoax it's driven by the performers, whereas here it's kind of it's almost out of the performer's hands. Was that?
It was sort of a three-way lie.
Yeah.
So you've got Shelby Singleton's lying to the public saying, this is Elvis. Jimmy's lying to himself because he's like, I'm going to put a mask on and it's not going to make any difference, is it? And then the audience are lying as well because they're looking at it thinking, is it Elvis? I mean, he's 3 inches taller than Elvis. And we did see Elvis in a coffin. So I think that's sort of what I was interested in.
Yeah. So those sort of 3 films, they come out sort of one after each other.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing you sort of talk even a little bit there and kind of knowing how those films were made, there's obviously, they're in development a lot and you're not sure which is going to come out when or what's going to get made when, and then you just take the opportunity to make them all. But from an audience perspective, it looks like this is someone who's just making films about music. Were you worried about kind of getting caught as the person who's going to tell kind of quirky music stories, even though when people see the films they're not like that, but I mean just for a bit of a remove it might be the perception.
Yeah, it's a bit, I mean, what's weird is you get played at a lot of festivals because a lot of festivals have got music documentary slots. But I always thought that they were very much stories about what it means to be a human being and have desires, and they're about the consequences of the desire for fame and the consequences of that. And also, they're about who you are as people. The mask is such a sort of overt thing. But you know, we all make decisions about what we look like every day. I thought I'd wear my suit today, but what does that make you think about who I am as a person? You know, people are layered and interesting. So there was a bit where I was like, yeah, they're not really about music, you know, and I studied music at university, so I'm very, you know, to write music for cellos, and so I'm interested in score and composition, but that's not the only thing. But you know, people find things.
Yeah, and I think all the best music films are always about something other than the music, because you know, those ones that resonate, like you say, you don't have to like the music a lot of the time to really understand who the human beings are that are doing this thing, and that, you know, it was so interesting to hear you talk at the start of the talk about where it all started, because everything you're saying is coming back to, well, what's the story with these people at the heart of it?
Oh yeah, there's got to be a story, because otherwise what's the fuel in the engine? Otherwise it's just, you're just ticking off hits on a list.
Yeah. Is that something that you've learned in terms of, you know?
I'm based in a cinema, and I go and see films all the time. I get very lucky, I get free tickets, so I go and see everything that's out, and I'll try not to read anything. And I'm interested in emotion and story. You know, my favourite filmmaker is Hirokazu Koreeda, who made The Amazing Shoplifters last year, and Japanese filmmaker. He makes films where the fuel that drives those films is emotion. But they're just cracking story. I love a good story that you want to unpick and get to know. And it might just be that you feel differently about someone at the beginning to the end. You know, I can sound it out. I was quite into the idea that there wasn't a huge story. The idea, you know, I wanted to show people what the shop meant. What would happen if the shop closed? Because I thought it might. When I was there, like one day I filmed and Tom took £5, and then another day he took nothing. And I was like, oh my God, it's going to close. My film is going to be about this amazing place closing, but you know, thankfully it didn't. But yeah, I'm not interested in and for things in and of themselves. I get, you know, as my films become more visible, I've been approached by a lot of record labels and people to make films, and it's quite tough because I say no to like almost everything, because I'm always like, there's no story. Just because they exist is not enough.
Yeah, and I think that's great that that's your approach. I think that is something that is so apparent in your work. So after you sort of talked there about your films becoming more visible, but for a couple of years you were kind of invisible.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, after kind of Orion, a very, very, what looked like a quiet period, at least from the outside, but obviously you weren't.
Oh my God.
So let's have a quick look at what Jeannie was doing for 2 years in secret.
This is strange. Here we are at the last table read. It's like looking around and seeing your family.
Makes me emotionally emotional.
And that there's a line at the end where the director sort of says, you know, this show saved my life, and you know, you're getting emotional there, and you know, I think again you feel like one of the right filmmakers to tell this story and actually draw out the people at the heart of this thing, which everybody knows, but no one sees. No one sees what it takes to get there. So. Talk us through kind of, I'm really interested in kind of that decision, because one of the people says at the start, like, you know, what have I done, or something like this, or why have I done this, you know, and that feels like a question to ask you, kind of like,
why the hell did I do it?
Why did you do it? Obviously, there are obvious reasons, but why did you, as a filmmaker who's interested in certain things, do it?
It was just too amazing to not do it. I got an email from a producer in Ireland that I've met at some film festivals, I don't know him very well, just saying, HBO are going to call tomorrow, take the call. That was it. So I was like, okay. So it's Googling the people. This is me Googling them. And I was like, oh, it's on Game of Thrones. I haven't watched Game of Thrones. Okay. So I'd watched one episode. I'd been trapped in a hotel in America showing Orion. Is that right? No, showing Sound It Out. And there'd been a tornado in St. Louis Airport. So I'd been stuck in America and I'd watched the very beginning of Game of Thrones, and there was all these making-ofs then. And then I just didn't end up watching it. I tried, and then I couldn't ever really, I just sort of thought, this is not for me. Or there's just too much to watch. So I sat my friend down, who I work with at Broadway, and I said, why do you love it? Tell me everything about Game of Thrones and why you love it. And I sort of thought, well, I don't know the show, but I understand fandom and I know why people love things so much. And actually, it's like the biggest television show in the world. Who are the people? Oh my God. Who are the people that actually make this thing happen? So I thought, well, this is quite interesting. I had the phone call with them and they asked me how I would approach making a documentary about the final season. So I just approached it like any other film. And I thought, I'll never hear from them again. And then I got a call 3 weeks later saying, I think this was on Thursday, and said, can you come to Los Angeles on Tuesday? We'll send a car. Okay. So I went, so I was interviewed by the writers, David and Dan, and Bernie Caulfield, who's the executive producer, and Carolyn Strauss, who's the exec who commissioned Game of Thrones in the first place. I mean, it was deeply surreal. It was sort of like driving down Melrose, looking at all the film studios and the Hollywood sign, and going and having an interview by these writers, talking to them about a show that I'd recently only just binged. You know, I'd been like really like trying to cram it in, and what I was really struck by was just the scale and ambition of it, how divisive it is, how strongly people feel about Game of Thrones, but also what it reminded me of is I made a film called Panto for Storyville, which was about, you know, any production has the same drama and people and are you going to do it? But also the way that Game of Thrones is told is it focuses on individual stories within a massive world. And I sort of thought, okay, I can get on with that. I'm going to do the same. So I just pitched them, you know, your story's about 7 kingdoms. I'm going to find 7 departments. I'll find you 7 amazing characters that will make you laugh, make you cry, and I'll take you through. Let's follow their final season in real time and see what it's like. And then they went, yeah, do you want to do it? And then 3 weeks later, I was in a god-awful, drafty quarry in Northern Ireland filming, and we filmed for 14 months in complete secret. Didn't tell anyone. Well, told my hairdresser. And then we cut for secret in 7 months at Broadway. And then they announced the film like 5 weeks before it aired, and then it aired in 180 countries worldwide. It was insane. The whole thing was insane. And it was such an explosion, and then afterwards the fandom's so voracious that they want everything, and then afterwards it's just quiet. I mean, people, when it broadcast, it was wild. People were sending me photos of them crying, films of them crying, and I got thousands of messages from strangers, thousands. It was amazing.
What was it like giving the film over, knowing how all those years were going to come down to essentially this last couple of weeks, because everything kind of geared towards the finale, and you screened just after finale or just around the finale?
We screened the week after the finale in the Game of Thrones slot.
So what was it like? I mean, obviously you sort of say the fans responded to it.
Oh my God, it was absolutely terrifying because I don't know if you watched Game of Thrones, but the season 8 there was a huge fan backlash, and we finished the film and delivered it before the season premiere. We finished the film, and then Alice, the editor, and I flew to New York for the premiere of the first episode at the Radio City Hall, which was amazing. It was very fun, and we just felt so relieved that it was all done and dusted. And then the fans, the petitions, it's just, yeah, it was a lot. And I was just terrified. At that point, I was just like, well, I can't change. The film is what it is. People will like it or they won't like it. But, you know, I think it's a good film. It's observational. There's no interviews in it. It's just following people in real time. And I've chosen some really odd people. So they'll like it or they won't like it. And I just had to feel like that. But people responded so positively to it. It was amazing because I sort of went into it thinking we'll get 50-50, but we probably got like 95% positive feedback.
Great. What was it like? What was the response like from the team? Because obviously it must have been emotional for them to see essentially all of their years and years of work kind of brought together. You know, what was the response like from them? You know, when they saw the film?
Oh, really, really emotional, and some people were in the States, so I got a phone call from David Nutter, who's the director, one of the directors I followed, and he phoned me from LA, and he'd watched it with his wife and assistant Patrick, and it was just lovely, very, very emotional. A lot of people responding to it with their hearts, and it sounds like everything's about tears, but
that was the goal,
people
wasn't
connect
it?
very directly.
And you obviously connected. I mean, you connect obviously with a lot of with your characters. I mean, that's what and the participants in your films, which is why I think they do make people emotional, because you're in there kind of as that conduit for the audience, kind of helping, not manipulating in any way, but just kind of helping get to what really matters. And I think what's remarkable from what I've seen of that is the ability to take, like, say, the biggest production in the world and zero in on people and the beauty of them doing their job, and, you know, just kind of happy and struggling and all the things that everyone does all the time. And I imagine that's probably a way for audiences to connect in a way they probably didn't even imagine when they're watching the show, which is so on another level in terms of the concept. This is the opposite.
I wanted to find the small stories in amongst this epic landscape. Have we got a clip of the actual show?
No, I didn't put one in because I didn't know if anyone had wanted to. I wanted to see it, but I wasn't sure what to do. We could probably grab one. Have you got the?
It'd just be good if we could show the clip of the Night King.
Yeah. Okay. Have you got the?
If you haven't, then.
Yeah. Have you got the drive there?
Sorry.
I think it's on my drive actually,
sending
Ben.
into
Sorry.
chaos.
Yeah. I don't. I think I've only given him the list. Sorry. What's that? No, I'm YouTubing it. I haven't got it in. I've just given him the playlist rather than the clips.
Yeah, don't worry.
Sorry. But it is available.
It's on
People,
Now TV.
Now TV.
It's on Now TV, it's on Prime, it's on the box set. It's probably... Oh no, I'm not going to say that. You can find it.
It's out there, is what we'll say.
Yeah, it's called The Last Watch.
Because I wanted to move on to the other film that you're making at the same time, which, I mean, because the announcement sort of came out very close. It was like, obviously you hadn't been around for a while, and my boss Kingsley, who you've met a couple of times in films, was like, when's Jeannie coming back? I was like, I don't know, I don't think she's not doing anything. And then it was like, oh, she's been doing The Last Watch, and also this film called Seahorse, which is... yeah, an absolutely remarkable piece of work, and similar to Orion, feels like, again, you just taking a huge leap forward in terms of your confidence as a filmmaker and your ambition as a filmmaker, while still retaining everything that's made of your films what they are. Could you just give us a little bit of context? We've got some stuff from Seahorse, but a little bit of context about that project, and also how it worked to do these two things side by side, two just huge stories, and how that was to kind of juggle emotionally as much as anything else those two worlds, which must have been literally kind of huge worlds to inhabit.
Seahorse tells the story of Freddie McConnell, who was a 30-year-old trans guy from Deal near Margate. He knew that he wanted to get pregnant and have a baby. He transitioned 5 or 6 years prior to that, and he went out looking for a filmmaker to tell his story. So he met with a number of filmmakers, and then he asked me to do it. And I was interested because it allowed me an opportunity to think, it allowed me a space to think about what it was like when I had my daughter 15 years ago and I was invaded by a benevolent alien. You know, so I could think about pregnancy and I could think about what it meant to be a parent. But also I just had loads of questions. I didn't know that many trans people. I was interested in the idea of someone who had endured enormous transition and change in their life, because that's what pregnancy also is. And I was interested in how that would affect him and whether he would experience things differently as a man. And so I said yes. I sort of said to Freddie, if you want me to make this film, I'm all in. Are you ready for that? And do you actually want to make a film? Really? Because it's a lot. And he was like, oh yeah, it's great. And then it was really tough. It was just the hardest thing ever. So I filmed Seahorse for about a year, and then I started on Thrones. And the thing that both films have in common is that they're both observational. And there's not really any visible interviews in the film. So you're really with someone in real time, with things unfurling. And yeah, I just wanted to, again, I didn't want to tell the story of every trans person who's ever had a baby. I wanted to tell Freddie's story about what it was like for him and the sort of challenges he experienced. And it was really intense. And I'm really proud of the film. It's been sort of extraordinary. We took it out to cinemas earlier this year, and then it broadcast on BBC Two in September.
It really is an extraordinary piece of work. It's interesting he sort of say about being all in. You know, what did you approach it almost in that kind of sound it out way, like it's going to be me, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be doing, like, it's going to be us, and we're going to go through this together. And is that then also what made it tough, or was it? I mean, obviously, you know, just the intimacy of watching someone go through that process is tough, and I guess tough for Freddie. But then also, was it not just that, because the making the film is one thing, but then the film is done and it's out there. Is that something else that was tough for Freddie to have to understand?
I think it was tough because he, you know, Freddie's talked about this publicly, that he thought that pregnancy would be the thing that he would find hard. But what was really difficult is once he stopped taking testosterone in order so that he could conceive, it meant that his gender dysphoria returned, and it's a sort of, he describes it as toothache of the soul. Can you imagine, like, a hunger that can never be satisfied, a sort of, it just made him feel profoundly terrible and at sea, really. And at this sort of time of profound difficulty, I'm there, hi, I'm going to film with you today, even though you don't want to film anymore. He didn't want to be in a film anymore, and it was really, really hard. So I'd drive for hours and show up, and he's like, no, not today. So I'd just wait, and I'd go running on the beach. I was training for a half marathon, and I just kept thinking, okay, I'm at mile 9. Sometimes you just you feel like you want to die, but you just have to keep running, and that is like the perfect analogy of long-form documentary filmmaking. But also making Game of Thrones, making The Last Watch was sort of like a blessing, because although that was physically and emotionally overwhelming as well, it was just so different. I had a team of 8 people. I would be doing that same intense filming of just me and the camera and one person. But it sort of flexed a different part of my brain. So I'd do a week on Thrones and then a week in Deal with Freddie, or a week filming in Northern Ireland or Iceland, and then I'd go back to filming Seahorse. So it was exhausting, but also you feel like I felt match fit.
Yeah.
I absolutely knew what I needed to do, and sometimes there's no time, so you just absolutely had to trust my instincts and just remember that when I'd done that before, it had worked out.
Great. Yeah.
I mean, it's scary. When I talk about it now, I was like, oh my god, like, it was not by design. But
like,
retrospectively, I think they're really similar films, weirdly. Because I finished Seahorse first, and then I finished Thrones.
Yeah. And what's also similar is, like, they're films that have put you, made you visible as a filmmaker in a way that probably has not been the case before, because those films have an audience that loves them, and you have a following. But this is something else in terms of Thrones.
But
the
they're
whole
just
world
much
is watching.
bigger, and like the film got an Emmy nomination, so went to the Emmys and hanging out with the drag queens from Drag Race and meeting the people from Queer. It's just bonkers, and that's crazy.
And then Seahorse on the other side is obviously it's topical, so the audience is going to come at it in a potentially rabid, but also kind of aggressive way, just because of what it's about.
Oh yeah, it's wild. I mean, when it broadcast on BBC, it trended, and we got a lot of really vicious, negative stuff as well, because the idea of a man having a baby is so new or different or completely fundamentally is not what people, this is not how they live their lives. And also one of the things that also happened is when we were taking the film out to cinemas, Freddie, during the making of the film, anonymously took the government to court so that he could be the first person, his baby would be the first baby to not have a mother on the birth certificate. He wanted to be listed as a father because he's legally male, so he wanted to be a father or parent. So he took them to court in a sort of precedent-changing court case, which was anonymous, and then 5 newspapers got together and outed him because they sort of said, you can't have your cake and eat it. You can't be in a bearing all documentary and claim anonymity. So we had this sort of extraordinary thing where my mum's phoning up and going, oh, well done for getting the poster of your film on the front cover of the Telegraph. I was like, what? And he was outed, and it meant the Sun, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, I can't remember, the lots of tabloid newspapers. So it meant that we had like ridiculous things where you had a journalist from a newspaper trying 15 times to get into a private screening, and then paparazzi waiting for us outside a screening room because they thought that he might have his baby there and they wanted to snap a shot. And I just sort of feel like he's just one person living his life.
Yeah.
Why be so? I think the tabloid frenzy around trans stories is just seems insane.
Yeah.
And it seems almost like the way that people talked about gay people 50 years ago. I mean, I've had a good friend who sort of, anyway, that's a story that I shouldn't say publicly, but people have strong feelings about transgender stories.
Which is why it feels such an important film for now, to actually spend so much time, I think, in that educational way that you're sort of saying there, because it feels like something which has been hidden for so long, and most of society doesn't have access to the experience of knowing people who've gone through it, and it feels really invaluable to have that film to just see such a complex story unfold. And do you feel like, because it looks like now so that your films have taken a step on with these two, as I sort of mentioned before, is that how it feels? Not just because of the response, which is obviously,
Oh yeah, like you feel like you know what you're doing more, or trust your instinct. I guess I don't second guess it as much. I'm just doing it, or you know how to keep the camera focused. Or, you know, I've spent more money on cameras, or I've had better. Yeah, you learn more, don't you? You learn more, and you try and, like, if I wasn't learning stuff, I would stop doing it. You know, with each film, you want to do something not bigger, but pushes you more.
Challenges you, yeah.
And I think the thing that I really felt like with Seahorse was, when it got challenging, I didn't want to put the camera down, I wanted to get closer. And I think in the past I might have maybe felt a bit more uncomfortable with that and walked away. Whereas now it feels like, if it's tough, I've got to keep filming and I've got to zoom in. And that's really hard. Like, when you're with people and you're living their experience and things are really hot, you know, tough or difficult, is it okay to keep looking? And I sort of know now, well, yeah, because you feel it in the film, and the film's more powerful as a result. You know, things like filming Freddie's birth, the birth of his baby. You know, that was I was going to do that with a camera person, and we'd got this all set up. And then when I got to the hospital, his mum just sort of said, "It's got to be you, only you." So I'm like, okay. And you know, I'm trying to keep focus while I'm having this sort of emotional experience to watching a baby being born, that I've been there at every stage of that baby's creation.
Yeah, amazing.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot for me as well.
Yeah. I think what's great about you as a filmmaker is that you feel that you understand that privilege in a way that a lot of filmmakers don't always understand. You know, like, you don't abuse that, and that you create that bond that is, we know that it's not an exploitative one.
Oh yeah, you've got to, I think the work of a filmmaker is to remain soft in a really, like, we live in interesting times, we live in tough times. So it's like, can you remain soft within that tough experience? Because, you know, I have to really fight my ground, protect my people whenever I'm making a film. You know, it's not, you have to work with lots of partners, but as soon as you make a film that costs more than £10, you have to work with all of those partners that put the money in. But it's my job to make sure that everyone sort of comes out of the other side of that, and they recognise themselves in the film, that they haven't been stitched up. You know, I need to be able to keep the promises that I make, and in order to do that, I have to do some stuff that's really tough and stand my ground. It was quite, I mean, making a film with, like, On the Thrones was fascinating because it's an enormous show, and navigating the edit was amazing. Just sort of saying, you just got to trust me, and you need to keep this in, and they did. Like, when I made The Last Watch, I said, you need to give me 4 months to just wander around and meet people and listen and do a bit of filming, and I'm not going to show you anything for 4 or 5 months. Which quite, when I look back now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that to them. And they were like, okay, yeah, totally fine. So just let me do what I want.
Awesome. And we're the better off for it. So let's just finish, if we can, with a clip from Seahorse. We can see what we're talking about. So I've seen another theme, which is lots of swearing throughout, so that's good. We've got another event in here, so I'm going to have to round up. But yeah, thank you so much for talking to me and sharing your work with us. You'll be around for a bit if anyone wants to kind of grab Jeannie for a quick chat after you stop crying. But yeah, thank you so much for coming to Filmstock, and yeah, let's thank Jeannie again.